topic which is in front of us. It is the need of the time to understand the way we devote ourselves for our families, for our education, for our work, for our other extracurricular activities and other special or non-special activities. The need of the time that moving with this all era of the worldly life, what is the need of devotion in the world in the way of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What is the need at this moment in our lifetimes? True devotion in the way of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And true devotion is totally based on sincerity, truth, and honesty. And this makes a devotion, a concern. What is the need in this time? What is the need to be connected to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We never even thought of it. We are hearing from a very long time from our elders, Fana fillah, Fana, total Fana fillah, totally for Allah, Allah, totally Fana fil Rasul, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, totally for Rasulullah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Fana fil Shaykh, no, nothing, only Shaykh. So these are the terminologies which are coming to us time after time. Fana fillah exactly means that we have a great value of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our hearts. We have accepted wahdat al-wujud of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But beside that, what are the needs and the requirements to be a positive, obedient servant of Allah, a very devoted in the way of Allah? What are the requirements? What are the needs? So proper devotion in the way of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is based on sincerity. It's not that only that we perform our prayers, that we are obeying Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We perform our prayers 5 times a day with punctuality in a masjid. It does not exactly saying 24 hours, 1 hour for sleeping, 1 hour for eating, 1 hour for something else, and 21 hours, 2 hours for anything, 20 hours in the way of Allah, reading the Holy Quran. No, it does not mean that. Fana fillah, as I was mentioning to you in this speech of Jum'at al-Mubarak, that there are two things which are always should be in front of us. One is huquq Allah and one is huquq al-ibad. Huquq Allah is the performance of our salah and all the religious duties. And Hukul Ibad is different, but it's not my topic at the moment. But I'm just talking about Hukuk Allah. In the Hukuk of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had made a must for us to do, we have to do it without any second thought. That is hukuk, that we are fulfilling the hukuk. Salat on time, fasting on time, zakat on time, Hajj Baitullah on time, recitation of Holy Quran on time. These are all hukuk Allah. A student is having a responsibility of education. So he should be very much flexible in sharing the time with ibadat and with the studies and the doings. Completely devoted in the way of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the person who keeps balance between his life and his duties. You understand the conclusion? This is a very simple understanding logic, a balance between the word and between the way of Allah. So, devotion in the way of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, based upon sincerity, honesty, truth, and humbleness and wisdom. So when that person, the person who is having all these qualities in him, then he gets the eyes open. The eyes open. He sees the things bright and bright. And because of that, Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens the door of blessing upon that person. Automatically, the path is being shown to the person by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ilhami, the path is being shown to the person by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the person becomes sincere in all his doings. First of all, the biggest need of exact devotion in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ihsan. When this ihsan emerges inside the soul of the person, that whatever doing is just for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When the person gets the feeling of ihsan, the devotion in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increases. So, simply to understand, devotion in the way of Almighty Allah is not based upon leaving the world on the side and choosing only the path of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want from you or from us all the time sajda, all the time prayers, all the time. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made this world as a charm the creation of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this beautiful world. We have to live in the world. And when we are living in this world, we should know what are our duties, what are our responsibilities. The proper exact need for the devotion of Almighty, in the way of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is based upon balance of life with the religion. The religion, to obey our religion is a must. We know, but we should understand that if there is the religion with us, when the religion is saying that we are bound to follow the religion, then try to understand the religion. It's not that we leave the world and go only for Allah. The exact devotion in the way of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is itself present in Islam, in our lifestyle of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, where Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has shown us all the things Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has done being in the world. He was a trader, he was a father, he was a trader, he was a husband, he was a neighbor, he was a commander, he was the most elderly, respected person of Medina Munawwar in those days, in Makkah Mukarram and Medina Munawwar. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has showed us his lifestyle. He showed his way. The biggest way of his lifestyle was totally based on truth and honesty. Truth and honesty leads to sincerity. When beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked about sincerity, what is sincerity, Ya Rasulullah? It was not asked in English, it was asked in Arabic. ما هو الإخلاص يا رسول الله؟ ما هو الإخلاص يا رسول الله؟ Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, sincerity is one of the secret among the secrets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ikhlas Allah ke razon mein se ek raz hai. This sincerity, when it urges in the human body and soul in a Muslim, sincerity and truth and honesty, this sincerity shows us the way of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then a person becomes devoted. Following Islam, following the teaching of beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, following the teaching of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the way of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, gives us the clue, shows us the path of devoting ourselves, exact devotion in the way of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Devotion in the way of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not based only on being alone on a side or performing prayers all the time or reciting the Holy Quran all the time, but devotion in the way of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala entirely is based upon sincerity, ikhlas, and that with the balance of the world and our religion. Jihad in the way of Almighty Allah. Okay, jihad is jihad, but jihad should be first with our own selves. Jihad in us. When our wish is saying that do this wrong, you do jihad and stop yourself not to do any wrong. This is the concept of jihad. Exact devotion in the way of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us that first we have to do our own accountability and then to be sincere in the way of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the concept of being in the way of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, devoted, is having a very huge explanation, and exact devotion in the way of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to worship Allah by serving the aiding humanity. Allah. When we come to this terminology, then we understand all ibadat, they are accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the best acceptance by Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of all the ibadat is to serve the aiding humanity. They are the creation of Almighty Allah. Look, there are many ayat mubarakah for the people who are holding Iman, who became Muslims after the announcement. But before that, Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always mentioned and named them, Ya ayyuhan nas, Ya ayyuhan nas, Inna Rabbu Rabbu Rabbu. Ya ayyuhan nas, everywhere Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are many occasions for the people who holded the Iman and became Muslims. Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about them in the Holy Quran. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu. So Allah Almighty is the creator of all. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the whole mankind, all the universe, all the entire worlds are being created by Allah. So when we talk about devotion in the way of Almighty Allah, then Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a criteria that what we have to do and what we not have to do. Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden us from so many haram. Murder, killing is haram. What is going on in the world at the moment? Islam, the religion of peace. Islam, the religion of tranquility. Islam, the religion of harmony, has told us long time back that killing is haram. And a person who kills another person, he will be or she will be in the hellfire. Now those people who are killing at the moment in this world, they are not making Almighty Allah happy. And if they say that we are devoted in the way of Allah, we live only for Allah, we want to make Allah happy with us. Allah does not become happy by these killings. By these killings which is going on. Allah does not become happy when the peace of the world is being disrupted. Devotion in the way of Allah should be like the way beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he himself showed his lifestyle to the people. The book 100, first name beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is mentioned by another religion scholar and author that he was a divine vision, that he was the only person who united all the people and who was moving on the straight path of peace with the people and who had favor of all the peoples. Even his enemies, they used to talk good about him. So the proper devotion, the need of devotion in the way of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should be to understand by all of us. Need of devotion in the way of Allah is not that we leave our clothes, our things, our families, our home, our work, our family and friends, knowns and unknowns, at home, and go in the way of Allah, that we want to go for some jihad or something. No! Jihad is not allowed like this. Jihad should be first on you or yourself. When Sahabi came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I want to go for jihad with you. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, why? He said, no, I just want to go with you, I want to join with you. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked him, do you have parents at home? He said, yes. Do you have children at home? Yes. Do you have family at home? Yes. Beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when you have your elders at home, you have your family at home, you serve your parents, your mother your children, your family. That is the biggest jihad in the way of Almighty Allah. The biggest jihad in the way of Allah. So devoting yourself in the way of Almighty Allah is just not being going to an extreme. Extremism is not allowed in Islam in any way. Islam says, be a balanced Muslim. Be a balanced Muslim. Don't become an extremist. Don't become a fanatic. Be a Muslim, performing the duties of Almighty Allah as per required and as per ordered by Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your other duties you have to perform, and that is the exact devotion in the way of Allah, and that is the biggest jihad one can do. May Allah tabarak wa ta'ala give long life to our elders and our scholars, imams and mashayikh, and give a good place in Jannah to those who have passed away from us. Allah tabarak wa ta'ala reward the best الدنيا والآخرة آمين ثم آمين بجاه سيد المرسلين وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين